Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Couch Time with Cassie. I am your host, Cassie. First, I'd like to thank you all for your love and your support. I wouldn't be able to continue doing this without it, and I just wanted to share my deep felt appreciation. Now, a few weeks ago, I did an episode with my fabulous guest, Jodie Ann Fan, and we covered self-care, going beyond the mani-pedi. But even after I finished that episode, I realized that there were some things that I still wanted to cover. So I decided to do a part two, and here we go. Now, just a fair warning, this list has some heavy lifting, and I just want to let you know. So brace yourself for it a little bit. Okay, first step, setting and maintaining boundaries. And that goes for yourself and others. Sometimes we think about boundaries and we only think about setting them with other people, but you also have to think about setting boundaries for yourself and with yourself, in terms of what you allow yourself to do. And you think about that in relation to your goals, to your dreams, your aspirations, and to your character. Sometimes you may have a desire to do something that may not be aligned with who you are or where you're trying to go and what you're trying to achieve. And it's important to set those boundaries with yourself. For instance, if as a person, your goal is to be financially independent or financially free, or wherever you are on the financial spectrum, you may have to set boundaries in terms of your spending. So setting boundaries with yourself is also essential. Now, setting boundaries with others, that's always going to be a tricky task, because these are usually the people in our lives, people that we love, or they're people on our jobs, and your income and your lifestyle is tied into your jobs. But those boundaries are essential nonetheless. When we fail to set boundaries, we give others permission to enter into an area that we don't necessarily want them in, and that could have negative impact on your sense of self, on your self-worth, on your self-esteem. And sometimes you'll end up in a place where you end up angry at yourself because you didn't set those boundaries, or you end up feeling disappointed in yourself because you didn't stand up for yourself. I know I've definitely been there, where I've let someone may have talked to me or treat me in a certain way, and afterwards I was upset, not at them but at myself. Like, did I really just sit there and let this person talk to me that way, or did I allow that person to treat me that way? And I end up being upset at myself because I should have stood up for me. If anyone's going to stand up for you, it needs to be you. You should be that first person in line. So it's important to make sure you are setting boundaries. And to be perfectly honest, if you're not standing up for yourself, and if you're not standing on business when it comes to your boundaries, then you can't enforce them, and you can't enforce them with others. And consistency is also key when it comes to those boundaries. Because if you're letting it slide this time, but then you try to enforce it the next, then you're setting mixed messages that it's really not that important, or your boundaries are fluid, where people are then confused. Like, when is it okay for me to do this? When is it not okay for me to do that? And then that person's also in a precarious situation. So it's important to be consistent when setting those boundaries. If it's not okay now, it's not okay tomorrow, it's not okay next week. Okay, let me take a little breath. Okay, so consistency is definitely essential, because it impacts your relationship. It impacts the quality of your relationship. It impacts your interaction with the people in your life. Okay, your standards. Your standards, you need to set them, and you need to keep them. And again, not just for others. You also need to treat yourself in accordance with your standards. If you feel like you're this kind of person, and this is the way you flow, and this is where you operate, and this is your vibe, you can't just expect others to treat you that way and then you treat yourself like trash. For instance, if you're having your head held high, and you're a queen, and you're this, and you expect others to treat you like this, and you expect others to respect you, then you can't just go throw yourself down any and any place with any and anybody, eating any and any kind of food. You have to respect yourself. in the same way you expect other people's to respect you, because how you conduct yourself and how you treat yourself gives other people a guideline to follow. It gives them either permission to treat you poorly because they hear you talking negatively about yourself or making self-deprecating statements, or it lets them know this is who I am, this is my standard, and the way I'm treating myself is the way I expect you to treat me. All right. I told you we're doing a little bit of heavy lifting today, and this may not sound like what you feel self-care should sound like, but this is the real self-care. This is how you're caring for you. This is self-care for the soul. It's not for the body this time. We're focusing on self-care for the soul. Now, let's say you had an original standard, an original boundary, and you're at a different place in your relationship with this person. And a relationship doesn't necessarily mean romantically. And you want to make an adjustment to that boundary. Then a conversation needs to be had. For instance, let's say you and someone at work were really, kind of formal, and, you have work boundaries set. If you decide you're going to become more casual friends outside of work, you should talk about it. Like, listen, now that we're friends outside of work, you can call me by my nickname, or, you can call me on my personal phone. You don't have to go by just the work phone. Whatever the example is, a conversation needs to be had. Like if you're doing it in project management, all changes must be submitted in writing and in advance before being approved. Same thing. If you're changing boundaries in a romantic relationship, you definitely need to have a conversation that, what, we were here at this point. Now I feel like we're at a different level. We can renegotiate those boundaries, but you definitely need to talk about them, not just sliding from one to the next with the expectation that that person knows and will be able to, uphold or relax those, restrictions or whatever they were. We need to talk about these things. These are some serious conversations that we need to have. And it doesn't need to be a whole, come to Jesus moment. It can just be, a simple conversation where we just say, what, this is where we were and this is where we are now. And this is what. Sometimes that could be important when you're moving the lines of a friendship where you and someone may have been super close and that person's no longer inner circle. There may be more on the outer circle now. You may need to have a conversation like, listen, we were super duper cool at this point, but now we're, going back, you know. Listen, Usher made a song, we're not good, but we're still good. Pretty much the same thing. Have that conversation that we're in a different place now, but this is where we are. Sometimes we actually just need to kind of talk about it. Okay. Prioritize your wants and your needs. If you keep pushing yourself to the side, you give other people permission to do the same. And I feel like this one applies more to women who have families, in terms of you may have a husband or children or partner or whatever the configuration of your family might be. I feel like this is where that's important. So if you're not taking your doctor's appointment seriously, if you're not taking your time at the gym seriously, if you're not taking your journaling, your meditation, or any of that stuff seriously, then you can't expect your family to necessarily prioritize your care. You have to make sure that you've established that just the way I prioritize everyone else in this house's well-being, mine needs to be respected too. So when mommy wants her alone time, we need to respect that, or whatever the case is. But you need to establish with your family how you expect to be treated. And it's not just with your partner. Same thing applies with your children, how you're supposed to be treated. You expect to get a Mother's Day card or a birthday card. No, they may not have jobs, but they know when Mother's Day is or your birthday is, and they can sit down and make you a card or save up money from their allowance and buy you a card like they would for a friend or whatever it may be. But you have to decide how you're going to conduct yourself and make sure you're holding your family, because it's your family is the easiest people to take for granted and to take you for granted because they're used to you being there, and the assumption is that you'll always be there. So that's where I feel like it's easiest to get carried away with. Okay, we're talking about resources now, and that includes time, money, skill sets, or what have you, whatever it is that people depend on you for. We tend to try to overexert ourselves and we overextend ourselves, and sometimes we try to do too much because we want to do everything. We want to help everyone, but sometimes you just can't. And it's okay to say, I can't take on anymore, or I may have initially agreed to this, but after further consideration, I don't think I can continue this. Or I know this is really important and you need someone to do it, but I don't think I'll be able to manage that load. Gone are the days where you're going to work yourself to death and make yourself sick to try to please, save, or fix everything for everyone at your own expense, at your own detriment, at the stressing and the destruction of your own body, mind, soul, and spirit. You're just as important as those people you are trying to help. And if you helping is negatively impacting your well-being, then a conversation needs to be had. Why does this take priority over you, your well-being, and what you have to give to your family and how you show up for your family? So resources, very important. And that includes money. Yes, money, the thing that no one really likes to talk about. If you've made it, a regular occurrence where you're bailing someone out or someone's constantly needing money or whatever, you may need to redraw those boundaries, especially if your finances are negatively impacted as a result of this excess demand. These are conversations, difficult ones, but they're conversations that need to be had and they're boundaries that need to be set. Now, I have gone through quite a few things, and none of them was light and none of them was happy, but they were all things that need to be addressed. We need to take better care of ourselves. One life, one body, and one real opportunity to be your best self, to show up your best, to live your best. And that doesn't work if you're not taking good care of yourself. So self-care begins here. It begins with this list. It begins with setting boundaries. It begins with making yourself a priority. And no, it's not selfish. It's not, the negative form of self-love. It's not conceit. It's deciding that you are a valuable human being who's worthy of being important, who's worthy of love, who's worthy of prioritization, and who's worthy of rest. And I'm going to say that part again. You are worthy of rest. And you weren't put here to be stretched thin, pulled every which way. Do the best that you can do, and that's all anyone can ask for. But you also deserve your best. So the same amount of energy and fight that you put for other people, do that for yourself. Be your own champion and set that example for others to be a champion to themselves. Okay, well, that's all I have for the list today. And that is all I have to share with you in this series of self-care. Unless something else comes up, then I might do a part 3. But thank you so much for your time, for your attention, for your comments, for your sharing, for your liking, for your participation, for your continuous support of my Couch Time with Cassie. I really appreciate it. I look forward to the next episode. I look forward to maybe having you on the couch with me, whether in person or verbally, or virtually. Either one. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time on the couch. Now, go take care of yourself.